If God exists, why is there so much suffering? Why do children die from diseases they never chose? Why do innocent people get caught in wars they never started? Why does pain seem to fall on people who least deserve it? For many, this is not just a question, it is the reason they stopped believing in God entirely. They look at the world, at the chaos, the injustice, the tragedy, and they ask, if a good and powerful God exists, why would he allow this? It seems like a contradiction. A merciful God and a painful world. But what if the problem is not the existence of suffering, but our understanding of life itself? What if suffering was never meant to be meaningless? What if it was part of a much bigger picture? In this video, we'll look at how Islam answers one of the hardest questions ever asked: if God exists, why is there so much suffering? The Quran answers this directly. We will certainly test you with a touch of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives, and fruits. But give good news to those who are patient. Life was never promised to be easy, it was promised to be meaningful. This world is not paradise, it is the exam before paradise. Without suffering, there would be no patience; without hardship, there would be no courage; without loss, there would be no gratitude; and without trials, there would be no difference between the one who truly believes and the one who only claims to believe. Another verse says, "Do people think they will be left to say, 'We believe,' and they will not be tested?" Suffering is not always a punishment, sometimes it is a purification, sometimes it is a wake-up call, sometimes it is a protection from something worse, and sometimes, it is a path to a reward so great that, on the day of judgment, the person who suffered the most will wish they had suffered even more. From a limited human perspective, pain looks pointless, but from the perspective of eternity, it can be the very thing that saves a person. A child hates the injection, but the doctor knows it will save their life. We see the needle, Allah sees the cure. The Quran reminds us, perhaps you dislike something, and it is good for you. And perhaps you love something, and it is bad for you. Allah knows, and you do not know. Suffering is not proof that God is absent, sometimes, it is proof that He is shaping, purifying, and guiding a soul towards something far greater than this temporary world. But there is one form of suffering that troubles people more than anything else. The suffering of children. When an adult suffers, people say, maybe it's a test, maybe it's a consequence of their actions. What test could a child be taking? What sin could a child have committed? Why would a merciful God allow an innocent child to suffer? Islam does not ignore this question, it answers it directly. First, Islam teaches that children are not held accountable for their actions, they are born pure, without sin, and they are not judged like adults. And if a child dies, their destination is not punishment, it is not hell. It is paradise. From the Islamic perspective, a child who suffers in this world is not losing everything; in reality, they may be gaining everything. Because this life, no matter how long it feels, is only temporary. A child who suffers for a few years, or even a few moments, may be rewarded with an eternity of peace, happiness, and closeness to God. And from the perspective of eternity, that suffering becomes incredibly small. But there is another side to this. Sometimes, a child's suffering is not a test for the child, but a test for the people around them. For the parents, for the doctors, for the society. Will they show patience? Will they show compassion? Will they help, or will they turn away? A child's suffering can reveal the best and the worst in human beings. It can create doctors who dedicate their lives to saving others, it can create parents who grow in strength, patience, and faith. It can awaken hearts that were once asleep. No suffering is ignored, no tear is forgotten, no pain goes without compensation. On the day of judgment, every injustice will be corrected, every suffering will be repaid, and those who endured the hardest trials will receive the greatest rewards. From our limited perspective, the suffering of a child feels unbearable and meaningless. But from the perspective of eternity, it may be the shortest path to endless happiness.